Most entrepreneurs, whether intentionally or accidentally, hide behind strategies and tactics. Yet when 87% of consumers say that authenticity is the key to brand loyalty, yet only 13% of entrepreneurs feel quote unquote truly authentic in their communication. So what's the missing piece? Welcome back to the Mind of George Show. This is the show for entrepreneurs like you who know that scaling their business isn't just about strategies and tactics. It's about authenticity and you expressing yourself in a way that you can have an impact and make income. It's about breaking free from the outdated business models, the crappy marketing tactics, and the mindset limitations that hold us back so that you can live in your truth, have marketing that connects, have world-class customer journeys, and truly make a difference while being your authentic self. Today, my dear friend Ryan Carey joins us, and he is the CEO of Better On, and he is an early, and I mean early YouTube pioneer, and he dives in with us on why authenticity is the ultimate competitive advantage and how to develop it as your entrepreneurial superpower. So we dive into topics like the true definition of authenticity in business, how to balance vulnerability and professionalism, how to use video as a tool for authentic connection, the relationship between self-acceptance and success, and practical steps to strengthen your quote unquote authenticity muscle. And it's 2025, and my favorite thing is coaching my clients. And there is one big trend happening across the board right now: transactions, shallow marketing, and all the crappy businesses without an identity are on their way out because there is a new boss in town, and the word is authenticity. And I even found a study from HubSpot that said 86% of people say that authenticity influences or drives the business decisions or brands that they support. So instead of seeing it as an obstacle, I think it's an opportunity for all of us to express ourselves, to find our tribe, and to grow and scale our business. And that's what we get into in today's episode. So without further ado, let's get into the show. All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Mind of George Show. I'm not going to beat around the bush. I'm just going to tell you directly what we're getting into today. Well, I think we're getting into, but this is the plan at least, is to unpack authenticity and understand the power of it, the ability to practice it, how to flex it, and how to use it as your competitive advantage when it comes to entrepreneurship, especially in a time and age of 2025, where the number one thing we're all competing with isn't really attention, but it's trust. And people can't trust inauthentic people. And so let's look at it as the superpower that everybody has access to. And so today I am joined by an incredible man. I would say we became fast friends when we connected before, and we should probably hit record. But he is quite an interesting character with a whole lot of history and kind of an early pioneer when it comes to video. And people are like, George, you're so good on video. You've been doing it forever. I think I might have found my Yoda or the match that had it handled before me, and I kind of followed in his footsteps. But he's the CEO behind his company called Better On. He worked and has been a part of YouTube and Google and IBM and Deloitte, and genuinely started as a YouTube content creator, launched Better On in 2014. So he's already 11 years in an OG before TikTok and all these other things came around. And it's really about understanding from my side that authenticity creates a powerful presence, and it's a muscle that we can use, and we can use it as professionals, we can use it as entrepreneurs, and we're here to kind of unpack it all. So just two dudes having a conversation about authenticity. And so Ryan, I'm honored to have you, my friend. Welcome to the show.
George, thank you so much. It's a true honor to be here.
I love it, my friend. And you get to be a guest in your own podcast studio today with a producer over there. So you just kind of get to be, performance mode. I love this.
I love it. And to the audience, I was telling George before, you all are probably just meeting me for the first time, but I'm here in a fancy setup. So I feel like this is for me, it's a 5-star experience, even just be doing this. So I'm already trying to up my game.
All right, and since we're unpacking authenticity here, I'll tell everybody why there was a quick edit right there, because I feel like Ryan is way more authentic than he should be allowed in professional studios, because, we're just breaking stuff over here, and we're good. We're back. We're ready to go. So Ryan, before we get into any more tech glitches or any issues, I want to kind of unpack and just start straight with dessert first, which is authenticity. And, I'm excited for this conversation because it's something that I talk about a lot, but never in the lens of like definition or really unpacking it. Like, how would you even go about defining authenticity?
It's tough because for a lot of reasons. I mean, I feel like authenticity is a word like many that gets thrown around, and there's a lot of power behind the concept. And then there's a lot of, I don't know, like the lack of authenticity is like something that people don't want. So you want authenticity and there's something to it. I think what I've learned, and I, just thinking off the top of my head, because, I don't have like a textbook definition. Authenticity is something that belongs to you, something that belongs to me. It is something that you are connected to within your sense of self. And I think authenticity is something you feel that is very intuitive. Sometimes you can kind of lean in and feel it more, but authenticity is that connection to the self. And we could do a whole episode about that. And then I think when you get outside of the self, it's about taking that connection to what feels true to you and, offering it, giving it, feeling it when it comes to other humans. And so I don't know, maybe it's a cycle too. There's a cycle of authenticity when you're talking about human connection, is that, if I feel it in a certain moment and the person or the people that I'm with are getting what I'm feeling, and I receive feedback from that, which could be a smile, eye contact, applause, or even silence, where I just feel it. I just think authenticity is like a feeling that we get to share that begins with our connection to ourselves.
I actually really, really love that that definition of like authenticity is truthfully an integrous connection to ourselves and how we're choosing to express in that moment. And we only know the accuracy of the barometer underneath that expression. And that's where I think that barometer comes in, because, in kind of hitting this in quick form, as somebody who coaches and teaches on this and does a lot of videos, I get asked quite a few questions about this. I'm going to like rapid fire some that I get all the time, because I want to hear your perspective on them, because I get asked all the time, when is too much, right? When is it too much to share? And one of the things that I say to people is there's a difference between intimacy and authenticity, right? And I look at authenticity, and authenticity is not like I'm going to verbally diarrhea every thought, every feeling, every viewpoint on top of you. But I would love to know like how you see maybe the restraint or the container around what authenticity is.
I'm gonna invent a new term I've never said before, and that is moment management.
I like that too.
Every moment is different. We are different day to day, hour to hour, moment to moment. So are the people around us. So when it comes to, well, first of all, if somebody has that enough of a relationship to their own authenticity to be able to say, I'm going to give them a 3 out of 10. They're going to get a 9 out of 10. Like I really want to talk to you about how you can kind of manage that. But I think that it's really a test. It's an experiment, and it's constantly being aware enough to that cycle that I'm talking about, to really know, like, I mean, you're not going to know what's too much until you give too much. And I think too, we live in a kind of a very polite society where, because people are dying for people want it, like there's a lot of need for connection. There's a lot of need for authenticity, to really build that authentic trust. So I think that most people have probably never given enough, but it's just a trial and error, I think, to really put it out there and be like, oh, nope. Because then you're going to feel it. You're going to be like, oh, that felt too fill in the blank, too vulnerable, too, I don't know, just too much.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I also think by the way, what is the term? Moment what?
Moment management.
I love moment management because I think underneath authenticity, because my brain's like tying this together as like you're speaking, because like I'm obsessed about it. But when we talk about like authenticity is really a true connection with your self-expression in that moment. You said this earlier. In order for it to be an authentic expression, it also has to empathize with the receiving party. And in that moment, what depth can be taken to create a beneficial experience, right? Because I can think of moments where, if you want to talk about pushing the gas pedal, George is a little too radically authentic and doesn't take into account the audience. And I'm like, I just burnt a whole lot of bridges down. I'm like, oh, oopsie, right? And, you learn with that feedback over time. But I think that there's a part of authenticity. The first part is really being connected to self and understanding, like, what am I intentionally creating or attempting to create in this moment of like, obviously my self-expression, but in this moment manager, what's the level of depth that I can take somebody to? Because I think about it, it's the difference. Like the barista, when I pull up in the morning, right? They're all like my daughters now because they're friends of my daughter, but they're like, George, how's your morning? And I've been like, truthfully, I'm going to drive my car into a wall at like 80 miles an hour because the ex-wife did this and this happened here. And they like look at me and they're like, and they just freeze. Like, I'm like, oh, went a little too far today. Where the other side is like, oh, kind of having a rough morning, but stoked to be getting coffee and just glad to be grateful. And they're like, oh, like both are examples of authentic expressions. And I'd say the first one is a little bit of me like bleeding on people when they didn't cut me because I'm also hiding in that authentic expression. So like, I'd love your thoughts on that.
So it's making me think of a quote. I forget who said it. It may have been Simon Sinek.
Yep.
But it was the only time where I was kind of like, like I kind of like poked a hole in my own theory. And it was something like, authenticity is for friends and continuity and dependability is for work. So I'm kind of getting closer to this line of like, well, how do you show up authentically if you're an entrepreneur or you're at work or something like that? And so I kind of thought a lot about that. I don't know, actually, before I say it, does that say anything to you? That difference?
That actually makes a lot of sense. Authenticity is for friends and continuity and dependability is for work. Yeah, that resonates for me.
Yeah, I think about it a lot. I'm like, I kind of use it to check myself, because I think to be even focused on talking about working around this idea of authenticity is not to be taken for granted, because we're talking about deep connections here that I think are valuable to anybody who feels that they want to create that connection, trust, relationship. But like you're saying about like bleeding on someone who didn't cut you, what is the range? And again, that comes down to the individual. Some people are like recklessly authentic, for lack of a better word, and other people haven't gotten there and may not want to get there. So anyway, yeah, I feel like there's a whole world there.
Yeah, well, I think, I've read a lot of, and I got to give her credit, like Brene Brown's books, right? And a whole lot of this, like my self-healing journey and all these different things. But I think the other part of authenticity that's so powerful is that our exploration of our self-authentic expression is also part of the process to allow other people's own self-authentic expression, not judgment, not projection, right? Like invitation to where, even in those moments where I've overshared, right? Yeah. And on that journey, I now have the perspective of like, oh, when somebody else is oversharing, it's not my place to judge them. It's my place to support them and allow them to find themselves, because it's truly a weird thing, because I look at authenticity and it's almost like an invitation to the deep end.
Yeah.
but everybody has to dive into their own depth at their own accord. And some of us cannonball, some of us toe tap, some of us, swan dive, some of us dodds and like death dive. And, some of us light ourselves on fire and jump in there and make sure everybody pays attention to us. But I think it's such an interesting and profound concept because, to your point, I see the part of the world where I would agree with you that people are craving it, but also there's a massive subset of those people that are also uncomfortable with it because your embracing of it is also an acknowledgement of you having to jump in the deep end at the same time, because you can only meet authenticity with authenticity.
Yeah. I mean, one of the side effects or one of the responses someone may get from that feedback cycle is discomfort from someone else. Like one's connection to themselves can be really intimidating and a bunch of other stuff to other people. And I think that comes with the territory of self-development, self-exploration, all that stuff, for a host of reasons. So again, moment management, like really picking the moments. And I think it works. And I guess authenticity doesn't always feel good either. Like,
I think that's important to acknowledge.
There's a whole spectrum there. But I don't know. I think personally, when just moments that I've learned that call it, if I'm putting it under a microscope, taking the risk of feeling authentic and maybe actively trying to be authentic for the sake of letting others into my deep end, it is received well and it pumps me up. I'm like, yeah, like that was hard for me and it was good for you. Great. Like I'm going to keep on moving. And we'll talk about this a little bit, but just like, I feel like using tools like cameras and mirrors can really help people get there, not for the sake of an audience, but for oneself.
Well, I'll foreshadow a little bit. The only way for it to ever positively impact an audience is for it to only actually be for oneself.
Yes.
So, for everybody listening to this, like I said this quote the other day because one of my friends, Brent, said it. He's like, but if you chase success, you might end up at some point wanting significance. But if you chase significance, you'll always hit success. But the significance is with self. It's with self-expression and self-integrity and, self-judgment. And even, to tie some of these pieces together, where I say, we spend most of our life avoiding the one relationship we're guaranteed to spend the rest of our life with, which is ourselves. To your point of like authenticity is really only for you to love, embrace, and accept yourself at the deepest level in your own skin. And that's the detachment that actually creates the results that we think we can do our way into. And so one thing I wanted to say before we get into like kind of how you got into this, because I'm excited to hear your story, is we're going to talk about this and you can even hit this now, but like authenticity is not a finish line. It's a pursuit of a state of being. Right. And like, I have an 8-year-old son next to me. You have a 3-year-old son, right? My 8-year-old is more of an accountability partner to authenticity than any adult I've ever hung out with, because there'll be moments where I'm like, are you really war crying right now while I'm recording a podcast and I told you not to, right? Like, or I asked you to, be quiet, or like, did you just scream in my ear in the car, or did you just twerk at the dinner table in the restaurant because you felt like expressing yourself? And it like makes me uncomfortable. And then I'm like, but holy moly, it's an invitation of like where I can be present and I can be authentic. And, one of the things that I realized with authenticity, underneath it, how I would define it, it's also a radical expression of radical. It's an authentic expression of radical honesty, right? Honesty of oneself, like honesty of one's actual feelings and perspective, but not pointed, not jabbed, not agendized, but communicated in a way of like, here's how I feel. Yeah. And here's how I see it. And there was this book that I read years ago called Radical Honesty. I think the author was Brad Blanton, but that book kind of changed my life because I was like, I'm authentic. And then I read this book and I'm like, I don't think I've ever been honest with anybody. And I was like, if this is what honesty looks like. And so I'm excited to hear about authenticity and mirrors and videos and tools and all that. But like, I also want to know, like, how'd you get here? Like, how'd you start? Like, how'd you end up at Google or, you know, in YouTube? And where did this whole story of like Ryan come from?
I feel like the story of Ryan has been pieced together after that, later in life, as I began to look at my own authenticity, begin to look at myself, work on myself, find an amazing therapist, which I'll talk for hours about. You know, I think that really helped me kind of have an accountability partner. But the story of kind of how authenticity entered into my professional world, I would say, is I was in San Francisco, living in San Francisco in 2005, and was pretty close out of school. I lived in Thailand for a while, taught English when I graduated college, and came back to the States and ended up in San Francisco and was working in tech, in just kind of like a, not entry level, but just like cutting my teeth in the digital world, learning about that stuff in the advertising space. And then right around about 2 years into that job of, you know, working hard and, you know, putting in the hours, I got a youtube.com link set to my email, and I clicked the link and it went to a page that had a video on it. And it was like, if you could have like, see my brain and then whatever, all the neural pathways, they all just lit up. And I was like, we're here. Here we go. Like, it's like I had been waiting for something. I didn't actually know when or how it was going to come. And I was like, man, this is cool. And at the time it was like, oh, wait a minute. So like I can like search like it's a search engine. Cause back then, you know, Google wasn't the only game in town. Like, you know, you had a bunch of,
We had them all.
Yeah, you had them all. You had them all. So I was like, oh, wait a minute. I could just like search, like I search these search engines and search on this video site, and it'll pull up, you know, like the limits of my imagination. 2005 was like clips of sitcoms I watched as a kid or MTV videos of like my favorite bands in 1986, like hair metal kind of stuff. And I was like, you know, and so, and it happened. And I was like, uh-oh, this is it. So anyway, I was living with some people, and somebody was working at an ad agency, and they came home one day and they had a business card in their hand. They said, hey, Ryan, that a guy from that website you like came in today to tell us what they're doing. And I got his business card. He said he's hiring people. And this was a guy, his name was Tony Nethercutt. And Tony Nethercutt was basically in charge of building the YouTube sales team. He was a team of one at the time. And YouTube didn't have a way of making money yet. And I emailed him, and I never do this, or I never did this, but I was just kind of like, I was ahead of my skis. I was like, hey man, you need me. You need to hire me yesterday. Like I am, you know, just like sold the hell out of myself. And he was like, okay, you know, tell me why. And this is over email. It's just like, okay, here's your shot, kid. Tell me why I should hire you. So I was just like, you know, wrote this huge novel, got an interview, went in for an interview at the original YouTube office in San Mateo, California, where it was like 45 people in a big room, where it was like engineering over there, marketing over there, trust and safety over there. And they were like, can you hang around for a little bit? So I hung around. I went and sat at a Chinese buffet for the afternoon, came back, and they were like, we'd like to make you an offer. And I was like, well, okay. And literally, that's how it all began. You know, at the time, I didn't know what an acquisition was. I didn't know what venture capital was. It was like really early, like startups were a thing, but not really as much of a thing as they are now, for sure. So I joined this kind of small growing team that was helping make YouTube money. And 3 months later, Google bought us, and everything changed. Everything changed for me personally. Not that I made a bunch of money or anything, but more just my role and my job and my career took off. And what that meant was that, you know, I was a solid C student. You know, I was not your book smart, you know, testing very well,
kind of student. So I never knew or thought I was like that smart. I never thought I like was like that accomplished or like could really do that much. And here we are, like a ragtag, well, not ragtag, but like a very talented group of about 50 or 55 people at YouTube who are now employees of Google. And Google, you know, had a high bar for hiring people. And all of a sudden, these 55 people joined this company of like 15,000. And I was on a small sales team, and they had a huge sales team of a couple thousand people. And they had been selling, you know, keywords and text and like how Google made their bazillions of dollars through that engine. All of a sudden, YouTube's part of the family, and these people need to learn how to sell emotion and sell what this early force that YouTube was. So they were like, can anybody help us? And they're like, hey, Ryan, can you come in and help? So all of a sudden, I was kind of like this like evangelist that would work with these Google salespeople and inevitably these large companies. And I would just explain why YouTube was cool. And I would get to say, look at all these creators, look at what's happening here. Look at the power of, you know, at the time it was like, you know, user generated content, UGC. You don't hear that anymore. But at the time it was like, you know, anybody who has a video camera can create anything that can connect to somebody anywhere in the world. And it was like unlocking this really, I just think this new level of connection from emotion and art and creativity and imagination. And I was just happy to be there. I was like, yeah, it's cool to sell and do all this corporate stuff, but I was like, I'm watching something from I'm watching the future, I think. So all that to say, I did it. I was an evangelist domestically, and then I was an evangelist for YouTube around the world, and got to learn about how different countries operate when it comes to like, you know, YouTube audiences and what people want and what works in different countries. And then at one point, I kind of realized it's been a good run. It's been about 7 years, and I don't know if this is, or I guess I think I have more to give. I have more to offer. There's more in me than just doing this job, because it was becoming a little bit more of a job. And I looked around and I was like, okay, who, you know, the people next to me who are where I'm going to be in 10 or 20 years, you know, what am I heading for here? And they were pretty well off, making good money, but no one was that happy. Nobody was spending that much time with their families. People were getting divorced. And this just wasn't, I was like, this may be a chance or a time for me to follow my gut where I don't know where it's going to take me, but I'll probably be okay. So that was like this jumping off point where I knew enough about video to be dangerous, where I could help a business grow and I could probably find a job if I needed to. But in my mind, this is, you know, 15 years ago, I wanted to take the biggest risk I felt I could. And, you know, we talk about how authenticity can affect other people. You know, I left a very stable job at a very popular company. So you can imagine 99% of my world was like, what in the hell are you doing? What the hell are you going to do? And I couldn't answer them. And it kind of was like this initiation into just going with your gut and being like, I don't know, but I'm going to feel my way through. And I'm a people pleaser. So it was hard to just be like, keep my head down and kind of go. And, you know, I actually spent a year being a YouTube creator. So I kind of knew enough about the world of business and video. I knew, you know, I had a seat at the table at YouTube, which most people didn't. So I felt very lucky for that. But the kind of the final piece of the triangle was doing what the creators did, like doing the hard work, creating something, creating a YouTube channel, picking up a camera, trying to connect to an audience I couldn't see. And that was the most illuminating and gratifying year, maybe in my entire life, because it taught me the power of video, the power of a camera, and the power of trying to be and feel authentic and give it to someone else. the concept of my YouTube channel was that I'm in San Francisco. You, my audience, aren't. It's a fun city. It's a great place to be. You probably wouldn't mind being here in my shoes. What if you programmed this channel? What if you programmed my show? What if you told me what you would do if you were in my shoes, and I'll go record it for you? Now it has to be like nice. It's like doing a nice thing for someone else. And we took my name, Ryan Carey, and called it Ricariously, because people were living vicariously through the videos that I was making for them. And it was actually about trust.
Mm-hmm.
It was actually about, people. I mean, of course, people are flooded now with crap and inauthenticity and who knows, whatever that is. But so 15 years ago, I was like, I just want to prove to people that the connection they receive through video, at least, can be pure as it can be. So people were like, at first they were like, wait a minute, you're not just doing this. Like, there's got to be an angle here. Like, so people were like looking behind the curtain, like, wait, I don't believe it. But the first person submitted a request to me, and I have to add, the only exchange was a donation to a cause they believed in. So it was a philanthropic effort. So the first person was like, all right, I'll play your little game, Ryan. I used to live in San Francisco. There's a coffee shop I used to love to go to. Take your camera, walk in there, like a POV situation, and ask the barista if they remember me. I was like, okay. So I did it, and I recorded it. I went home. I edited this like 2-minute YouTube clip. I sent it to them, and I was like, here's your video. And they were like, oh, you're serious? Like, you're doing this for one person? And so that's how it all began. And I recorded about 60 episodes over the course of a year, got all sorts of requests. I just built trust, initially with people that knew me, and then eventually through people who were like, oh, I see what you're doing. And it was just the most wonderful thing. But what I learned about the power of a camera and what I learned about the power of video was that it can be really good for your mental health. It's a skill that most people run the other way from. Most people are not itching to talk into a camera, let alone watch themselves on camera to improve their connection to whoever it is they're trying to be authentic with. I kind of forced myself to do it. So I taught myself that skill. So I was like, so it was kind of becoming the point where I was like, I might want to look at getting a job now, or like, something that can pay the bills. So I was like, you know what? I can teach this. So my first client was a team of engineers at Google, where I went in with a tripod and a camera. And I was like, all right, guys, I got you for 2 days. We're going to do some uncomfortable work. We're going to we're going to record each other playing games. We're going to watch it, and we're going to see what happens. And they were like, ooh, this is going to suck. And I was like, yeah, it probably is. And at the end of it, they were like, I get it. It works. Like, this is a muscle. So fast forward 10 years, and I don't want to go on too long here. Fast forward 10 years, what began as, on-camera presence work in person with a camera and a tripod and me or one of my team members has now evolved into a scalable, asynchronous video training platform that anybody in the world can use to practice showing up as themselves. I'm done.
I genuinely was like on that ride with you. You could have kept going. Like, I could listen to it. I'm like, this is an incredible story. And there's so many similarities too, because I didn't set out to be the guy on video. It was back when Meerkat and Periscope came, and like Facebook's algorithm changed, and then someone's like, live video. And I was like, I suck at this. And I was like, I'm going to go live every day with no end in sight. And I went live. And I like, it's so funny. Me and my friend Ryan were the first people to ever live stream scuba diving with one of these platforms, like on Periscope. And they like reached out to us, and I like made a coax cable that ran all the way down 80 feet in Catalina Island in California, because I was like, Wi-Fi signal will not go down. So we're like making cables and like, but like, to your point, like I've probably done like 200,000 videos in the last 15 years. because
So, okay,
everything I
this
do is on
is,
video.
dude, you really are like, this is amazing. I mean, I don't meet people like you very often. Like, so in the beginning, what was the drive? Was it fun? Like, how did it begin? And when did you start to
Yeah.
realize like, this is
It was
constant? Yeah.
it was never about other people. It was because like even as a kid, like being homeless and growing up in trauma and social services, the only things that I ever understood were things I figured out on my own. And like I learned through doing things. And so like when I wanted to get good on video after I did all those live streams, like I would watch like Casey Neistat and Van Neistat, his brother, and all these other people. And I was like, I don't know how to do this. And so then I was like, I need to teach myself. So I made a rule that I was going to vlog every day for 30 days. And I called it the Push Your Limits Challenge. And I made a rule that I had to have a video posted by 8 a.m. every day, which meant 3:30 wake up, CrossFit ice bath, talking head camera, edits, and then I'd start mixing in the days. And I did it for 30 days. Then I went on for like 6 months. And then I would teach myself editing and boom. And I just wanted to know how to do it. So it was never about like, oh, if they watch it or if they see it. And then even when I was live streaming, I didn't care if anybody watched. I was just learning how to have a conversation with myself. And I was like, oh, like, here's what I'm thinking. And I almost saw it like a personal video diary at first. And then, one person would jump in. And then I remember there were some of those Facebook live streams that had like 6,000 people watching, or, Periscope would have, a couple thousand people. And I would still just treat it like I was talking to one person. So it was like this obsession of like, I wanted to know how the machine worked and I wanted to feel confident and competent, not the best. Like I just like, a jack of all trades is oftentimes, better than a master of one, boom, boom, that whole quote, but the full quote where it's like, it's oftentimes better than a master of one. And I was like, I want to be competent. I want to be aware and I want to know what all of these things are and like almost be dangerous in them to where like I'd be a liability, but maybe it's a little bit of an asset.
Woo. Wait, did you say video post it?
Video post it?
Yeah. Did you say that or no? I think so.
No.
Just okay. You were just saying like your 30-day push it challenge was like.
Oh, and so yeah, I would post it by 9 a.m. So like I would wake up, I would record a part of the video at 3:30 in the morning, like how I felt and like I can't believe I'm doing this. Then I'd go do an ice bath. Then I'd go to CrossFit. Then I'd come back and like grab some clips of my day the day before, and then like I'll never forget, like it would take me like 6 hours to edit a video on like week 1. By like month 3, I could edit a video in 45 minutes because every time I was shooting, I would shoot with the edit in mind. I'm like, oh, that clip could go there. Like that would be a transition. That would be a blank. And it was just like, I wanted to get better. Like, just like if I go to the gym, like if I want to get better at running, like I have to put my shoes on the pavement and run, and then I'll learn how to run better. And when I wanted, and truthfully, here's what's so funny. My first career in entrepreneurship, I was a food blogger. So 2 years after never knowing how to cook, later, I was a New York Times bestselling cookbook author. And it wasn't because I took a course on cooking. I was like, I don't know how to cook. All right, I'm picking 5 recipes till I master them and I can do it without a recipe. And then I'm going to add something or change something. And then I made 2 to 3 new recipes a day and posted them on the internet for 2 years. Well, those are the recipes that served as the foundational basis that went into cookbook, which then made me a New York Times bestseller 2 years after I'd never cooked before.
I mean, man, this is amazing. It just sounds like you're someone who has built yourself to survive, but B, to really push it. And those are probably interconnected. And when it comes to what we're talking about, because inevitably you've got to hit record and be like, hey, everybody, like whether you're there or not, I'm doing this thing. Like your push it energy vibe mentality has, in the early days, went into this medium that we're talking about, for lack of a better word. Does that sound right?
It is 100%. And it was an accident. You nailed it. It was a survival mechanism of being on my own from 13 on. But then what it turned into was the healthiest viewpoint of life, knowing there's no finish line. And then you read books like The Comfort Crisis by Michael Easter, and you're like, oh, I'm supposed to intentionally do this because the right amount of constraint is what creates growth. And, you know, like even being a parent, right? Like you ask me to write a manual on being a parent, like good luck. You know this as a father, right? And I think about all the times where like before my son, if you asked me to do any of this, I would have said no. But when an 8-year-old asks, somehow I find the ability to say yes, and it's hard and it's tiring. But then on the other side is this moment, or him and I dancing in a store when I would never dance before, right? There's these like pockets of like, if I'm not a little bit sweaty, a little bit uncomfortable, or a little bit nervous, I'm being inauthentic. Like I try to find that edge.
You, in one of your most recent releases, you said something I wrote down, which you said discomfort is the price you get to pay for growth.
Yeah.
That is money. That is so good. Yeah. So on this journey, was there any point was there a point where you're recording yourself and inevitably watching yourself? And maybe it's from the beginning or somewhere in there, but at some point were you like, oh, that's George. Did you ever get to like meet yourself in a new way?
Only, I'm so glad that you asked this. I've never talked about this in this podcast. I could not watch or listen to myself until 3 years ago. 3 years ago.
Whoa.
So I've been making videos since 2010. I probably 10, 15, 20,000 videos would be my guess. Like I'm talking, I have 6 terabytes of footage on this side, right? Like boom, boom, boom. The first time I was ever able to sit down and watch myself was like 3 years ago. And I was talking about this yesterday with somebody on their podcast. And I was like, it took me a year plus to like figure out why. And I realized that in the videos before, I was claiming to be authentic, but I was never fully accepting myself for who I was. And there was this one talk that I gave after a whole lot of big life changes where I no longer cared about what happened with the message. It was just this expression of like radically authentic self. And it was the first one where I could hear myself and like, it didn't make me uncomfortable. It's like, wow. And I was like, oh, that's like who I am. And that's who I am. And the craziest thing is that if I go back and if you could do this, if you go listen to an old podcast of mine 4 years ago, 5 years ago, you'll notice that my pitch and tone of voice is higher. And then a big line of demarcation on my show is when I posted my testimony, like my salvation with God. And even my partner and my best friend's like, dude, your voice got deeper. Like your tone is more calm. And I was like, because like I'm home, and it all like happened around the same time. And so truthfully, I used to talk about it on the show of like, I never watch a talk. I never re-record. I never do more than one take. I keep everything in. But what I was never honest about, it was because I couldn't watch it without self-deprecating and judging because I didn't have the awareness yet, or also the courage to share my full authentic self with the world.
So I don't want to get too off onto, where things are going technologically, but we're talking about, AI is coming, and who knows if we're all going to have jobs tomorrow or whatever. That's a whole other conversation. But, we talk about the value of connection and how that hopefully won't be replaced by a robot. But wait, I just forgot what I was going to say. What were we talking about? Hold on.
I think authenticity and deep expression somewhere in there.
What the fuck? I just had such a good one. All right, it'll come back to me.
Sure, my brain does the same thing.
I know. So I kind of joke with people that because like being an entrepreneur, it's like, when you're on your own, you're alone, and you don't know what's, you almost feel like you can, like a big gust could blow you off more quickly than others, or maybe not, or maybe you're more stable. All we can do is just kind of keep on moving. But I was joking that as long as people, well, no, if people for some reason start to love to watch themselves on video, I'm out of business.
Mm-hmm.
But until then, we're good. Because if someone like you took years, because you could do it, you can make amazing stuff and create a brand and all this, all this stuff without observing yourself or connecting to yourself in this manner. Like, it's not mandatory, but, and it probably never will be. I mean, really, but with what you, I mean, man, this is such a good testimony. Just like things change. And this is where, for me, I don't even know how to, like, not that I would advertise that, but it's really hard to be like, hey, come and watch yourself on video and learn a new skill and like get deep with yourself. And it's like, it just feels, even like being like, hey, I'll sell you authenticity. You're not going to sell anybody their own authenticity, but that's the work. Like that's
it is 1,000, and it is a superpower. Like I would say this wholeheartedly for anybody listening. It is 100% the superpower that everybody has access to, but most people will never open the box, is actually being able and being willing to go into that bucket or to go into that conversation or to watch that video. Because I think, to Ryan's point, it's not required. You can build a brand, you can be good on video. I found that I was playing in kindergarten, and the moment I was willing to open that box and like watch a video and do it from a place of compassion and also like curiosity, not judgment, like curiosity of like, oh, I never realized that the word irregardless means the same as regardless. And I used it 47 times in an 11-minute video. And I was annoyed with how many times I said it. Or the fact that I teach breath work, yet I don't think I took one breath in that 14-minute video, and I was talking at 220 words per minute. And space is the most powerful tool, but I was never able to hold it because I was uncomfortable in my own skin. So I wouldn't pause. I wouldn't leave space. And until I started watching my videos, I didn't get to see what it was like to be on the receiving end. But the moment I opened them, and like really, I remember one, I watched it and I was like, man, that was a good talk, but holy moly, did I alienate half the room. And it was like, and there was even a clip that came up on Instagram, because you and I were joking about swearing before this podcast. Like, I used to drop F-bombs like every third word because I was a Marine. And there was a clip that came up on Instagram from a couple of years ago that went viral on somebody else's account. And in a 60-second clip, I dropped 27 F-bombs. And the message was quote unquote good, and it was in there, but I like looked at it and I'm like, ew, like who was I? And now I look at it and I'm like, no, leave it up. And that same message would have landed with the women in the room and the parents in the room and the everything in that room with such a different delivery if I had just been willing to watch it. So I think it's also, to your point, it's the work. It's this deep, deep work of like, authenticity is knowing yourself and accepting yourself, and then really being willing to ask yourself, like, how do I want to be perceived? Not that their perception matters in the lens of judgment or them accepting me, but like, as a leader or somebody who wants to have an impact, or a coach or a speaker or sharing a message, like, am I really, really interested in how this is perceived? And you find that when you watch it again. So I think it's huge.
And, going back to that moment management idea, I think a lot, well, I guess me, before I, like, again, not that we've done all the work and we've figured it out, but we're saying this is a journey. This is ongoing, and it's not going to stop. And I hope it never does. I hope the work continues, because it's, you're alive. Like, that's what it's about. But I do think that oftentimes it may be like people may see what's identified to them as authenticity. They may be like, oh, this version of me, or this version that I could be, is accepted and felt by this audience. And they jump to that, versus going like through the back door, which is in this example, like the proper way, where you start with yourself and then you decide what those people get. So like, if you're with yourself authentic presence, feeling, whatever it is, drops F-bombs and you feel it, that's awesome. But that doesn't mean that you always need to be that at all times. And you get to choose. And again, it's like, so here's an example. This is very minor, but like, I love being on a show. I love this. And I'm always like, who knows? Maybe 1 million people are going to see this. Maybe 100 people, who knows? But I put on a collared shirt. And if we were having coffee, I wouldn't do that. And it's like this, like a little bit of just like, oh, I want to, like show a little polish. And I don't think for hours about it and like have a debate with myself. But, it's similar to like, oh, okay. Even though I kind of know the feeling of how to connect, like my path to connection feels clear. So if that's the case, I may be talking to a group of teachers where I'm not going to drop a bunch of F-bombs. I may be talking to another group where I put on a suit, which I usually wouldn't do, or it's like, you know what? I'm talking to this one person and it is full blown. I'm not going to think about that stuff. So it's just, I don't know. I think like we're living in this time where without, I don't know how true tell me if this feels true or not, but like without the evolution of cameras and imagery and motion pictures and television and then YouTube, and now everybody can have as many TV channels on their phone as they want to, would we be this deep in like authenticity? Like, because everyone all of a sudden can be so visible, is so visible, can be overly visible, which then creates, a bit of some, I think, subconscious threat where people are like, well, I don't want to be seen. I don't even know what I'm working with. I don't want anything to be seen,
Yeah, I think it's almost like before the rise of the internet, nobody realized that we were in a giant game of hide and seek, and then the internet turned the lights on.
Totally.
Like that's the way that I see it, right? Like there went from this, like even when you and I grew up, right? Like my first digital device was a freaking beeper with Smart Beep for 99 cents a month, right? Like page me and I'll call you back on like a house phone, right? Like it wasn't like I'm connected. The people that you would see, like you were limited to like your community. Even when we had like email, right? Like you didn't have a contact list of like 7,000 friends that could poke you on your wall, right? Like it was like, oh, I got a couple of emails for people I care about. And then like all of a sudden these tribal creatures as we are gets basically of like, and the funny thing is, it's like the Truman Show. The lights get turned on and you're like, oh, I am not alone in this existence and this experience. And then it is massive. It's like Occam's razor. It's like this small little thing that everybody thought was like this little leap was this massive leap to your point. And then it deeper and deeper. But I feel like it puts pressure. And it's like, you have to try harder now to not be seen when 15 years ago you actually had to put an effort into being seen. And so it's like the entire game changed. And so to your point, I feel like it did that same thing. Like I'll share this authentically. I live in Montana for a reason. You don't know me. Good luck finding me. And also I know all my neighbors and like who I see at the gas station and boom, boom, boom. But like, I'm not dealing in like New York City, LA. Like I got to bump into all these people or everything's being recorded. Like you go to the rodeo here, there's 3,000 people. You won't even see an iPhone. They're in people's pockets, purses, or they left them at home because everybody's present, right? So now it's almost like shifted the conversation, I think, to your point. But I also think that it's one of the most powerful things ever because the benefit is we are connected and we have the ability for you and I to be in North Carolina and Montana and to have an authentic conversation and reach people. Or like I gave a keynote to Australia the other day. I had a guy in India have me on his podcast. I had a connection with a high school student in India who was 16 doing email marketing to support her family. Like those were the things that couldn't exist also. And so I think that it's this beautiful evolution. And I think it's an invitation. And I think it really is the thing that we all crave. And truthfully, I think what ended up happening is like, and this is just my belief, this might be too deep in life theory, but I believe we are tribal community creatures that require connection and safety to thrive. Like none of us do this alone. And for the thing that was designed to bring people together, created more divisiveness, which is the internet. And authenticity is the solution or the prescription that will bring connection back to it. The more people that are willing to lean into it. Doesn't mean everybody. Like there's going to be charlatans, there's going to be snake oils, there's going to be all of it. Just like before the internet, there were plenty of people running Ponzi schemes. It still existed in business, right? But I think it's this point of like, it creates the ability for us, if we see it that way, to create that connection, to create that community, to create these conversations where like, you and I didn't know each other, but we became fast friends pretty quick. And I'm like, if it wasn't for the internet, we wouldn't have been able to do this. And I love that. And so I think it's really about, to your point, staying in pursuit of it, as well as continuing to utilize the field that exists as an area to create opportunity, right? Because our perspective is the difference between our prison and our power. And it's really easy to want to hide from the internet, or to not want to be on video, or to not want to send an authentic message. And I was like, but what's it costing you? Because the other side of that is there's a lot of opportunity there as well.
Sure. And I think this is where, empathy is part of the pie, where if you're thinking about, other people, giving to other people, as a second step behind connecting to yourself, something that, so we work with a lot of professionals on their authentic presence. And what that means is that a lot of, executives will walk into our programs anywhere in the world. They'll jump into our platform, which is just a recorder. I mean, not to minimize it. It's not what you say, it's how you make people feel. And the kind of meat of our product is to record yourself and then an immediate playback. So you're like, oh, there I am. So like you have to watch yourself. And one of the things that we try to quickly institute is that no one cares. No one sees what you see. No, we are our own worst critic. We are, but we think, well, everyone else is going to see those same warts that I see. Everyone's going to see my trauma. No, they're not. Not unless you really get good at telling the story, are they going to pay attention to it? So it really is about, putting yourself in that space, because once you're there, you can give and connect to other people in a way that we never could.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love this. I just love, I want to get into, because like we got to land the plane soon, but like not in any rush as well. Like the level of depth that we got into in like authenticity, like there's like vein after vein of like through lines in this of, responsibility to be yourself, to have sovereignty and agency like nobody's coming, like the willingness to explore yourself and really master oneself, right? Like I think about it as like a parent. You and I are both parents, right? Like my son's 8 now. So like I'll have a thought about like insecurity and I'll be like, hey, but I have a question. Like daddy feels like he was a little short with you and I'm pretty upset about it. Like, and he's like, no, dad, it was great. Like I understood. And I was like, is there anything I can do better? And he's like, no. And then a day later, he's like, hey dad, actually the way you said this, blank, 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 blank. Right. And I think that authenticity is almost like this forever pursuit of like finding the best version of ourselves, being willing to explore from this place of like curiosity and grace and say like, am I where I want to be? Am I expressing myself the way that I want to be? And not that you have to have a big goal. Like you don't have to go win a Nobel Peace Prize. Like you don't have to want to like keynote 100,000 people, but like, is the way that I'm living my life in alignment with that vision that I do have for my life? Like, and then am I taking the steps to look in the mirror, to have the conversations around authenticity? I don't know. Like that's what I see and hear. Like, what are your thoughts?
Got a million of them. I mean, I think to the people listening to this, I just want to call out that what we're talking about, A, we're not the experts on it. B, it's really hard to do. And there's a really kind of like, there's a, I want to say like a gross side to it, meaning that, but it's like a good, healthy gross. I've never used that word with this before, but we talk about observing yourself, watching yourself. People cringe. It's gross. And I guess I want to say it's okay if you get to that point and you have like a gross reaction to what you're doing. And I can't say what happens after that, but usually we are able to kind of adapt and come through it. And I'm just thinking about for like me, like, it's not a 0 to 100%. I think how I look at a lot of things is like people talk about happiness and it's like, oh, well, and I don't know, like if you're not working on or focus on happiness, you might be like, oh, well, it's just this big, broad, this person seems so happy. They're choosing happiness, whatever it is. I see it as like 51, 49%. Like it's a battle. Every day is a battle. Like bad, good, up, down, up, down. If you can end the day 51% yes and 49% no, you won. Like that's good.
Yep.
And I kind of think with what we're talking about, with like seeing yourself and observing yourself, like if you can be like, oh, like 49% like, ugh, gross. Like, it's like, yeah, like that'll get smaller, I promise. But 51% like, oh, it's not that bad. You can win at this skill too.
Oh, the way that I see it is that like when you go to bed at night, there just needs to be more seeds in your garden than weeds.
There you go.
That's it. Like you will never have a garden without weeds in it, right? Like the moment you pull them, there's another one growing, right? Like it is just making sure that there's enough food that the seeds outlast the weeds or like outnumber the weeds. So I genuinely love that perspective because I think that that's the point is that, even for people here, because like I'm really, really excited to, and I'm going to ask you in a minute to tell everybody where they like can connect with you and like give them the overview of like Better On, because like I genuinely, I would challenge that, the experts in this space aren't the people who necessarily have the degree to talk about authenticity, but have the experience and have walked the path, because your authentic expression can only be yours. It'll never be mine. It won't be Ryan's. It won't be, somebody else's, to your point. But it's almost like the willingness and curiosity to go find your own and then have somebody who excites you or tickles you or triggers you. Like I'll never forget, like one of the reasons it worked for me is I saw a friend of mine like maybe 15 years ago give this keynote, and he started it with what he called the 60 seconds of truth. And he started a timer, and for 60 seconds, he told everybody how he authentically felt in that moment. And I was like, I would never do that. And then 2 years later, I did it. And it was the best thing I've ever done in my entire life. And then I took it deeper and deeper. And I'm like, oh, but like it was that spark, right? Of like, oh, that is something that like excites me, right? And now the joke when I keynote is I'm like, I can tell you how passionate I am based on how many t-shirts I sweat through during this keynote. And they're like, well, I'm like, oh yeah, no, it's like a 3 t-shirt day. Like I'm going to change. I'm going to sweat through it again when this is done. And then sweat will keep coming. And I'm like, that's the level of nervousness I am when I keynote. And so I think that even this conversation, if it lands and resonates with anybody, it's just like a permission slip to be curious.
Yeah.
Right. Because I feel like what authenticity has given me is freedom in a world that I convinced I could never be myself in. And, I had somebody on the podcast and talked about like these gilded handcuffs or these golden cages. And I think inauthenticity is 100% the prison of our times. Because at the end of the day, when no one's around or you're in your house, like the only thing you have is that relationship with yourself. And the things that kept me up at night were like, I can't believe I said yes to that, or I didn't say that, or I agreed with that, or I didn't stand up for that. Like even a year ago, we were at a restaurant and there was a client in town and I was with a mutual friend They had a client and it was their client's dinner, and I was there just to be like, you know, a circus monkey of support and pour in when possible. And I'll never forget it because she was very rude to this one person, was very rude to the waitress. And anywhere else in the world, I would have just stopped it instantaneously. But I was like, this is not my client. I can't cost them money. And like it ate at me for like an hour. And then we got into the car and like, I really like should have said I wanted to. And I was like, I'm just saying something right now. And I was like, we're going to go back and apologize. But I was like, I knew in the moment, like every part of me, but I didn't want to like step on anybody's toes. And then it was like, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I was ruminating about it. I'm like, I can't let that woman feel like that. Like somebody has to say something. Turns out they wanted me to, but it came down the road. And I'm like, oh, if I had just expressed myself authentically, you know, that whole situation and all of it. So I think about that with authenticity. And so I know that's a little bit of a rant, but I wanted to throw that in there because I think, you know, only you know what is authentic for you. Only you know what feels right for you.
I'm going to pull one more nugget from your recent release, which is what's the highest version of you not going to put up with? I mean, you know, I don't know. It's like, you know, so hearing, you know, listening to you, if maybe someday I'll create like a micro George course where it's like, take the stuff that George is saying about, you know, who you want to be and practice being that version in front of a camera and then look and see who you can be, go be it and keep practicing. And that's what it is. Like, I actually see with what we're doing, like if so, you know, not that you're asking, but just like what could like the better on exit strategy be? You know, we're still growing and we're kind of going somewhere, but I would love to be acquired by Nike because this is fitness. This is like emotional fitness. And you know, like you can't bullshit your muscles. Like they are what they are. Like if you practice going for the right form that feels true to you, you win and everybody around you probably wins.
That is such a good way to put it, man. We talked about, I did a podcast yesterday on like with my friend Chris DeVecchio, who's an actual trainer, but he's like, entrepreneurship is basically like a business muscle. Like you're a professional athlete as an entrepreneur, but we were talking about emotions and mindset and you nailed it. Your muscle does not lie to you. Like your emotional resiliency, like your relationship with authenticity, it is what it is. But that's also an invitation to like, if you want it to have a six pack, get in the gym. Right. And if you're okay with it being morbidly obese and dying, well, keep feeding it poison and consuming things on social media and not taking those steps. But I think to your point, I'm not going to judge you either way. The invitation is there, right? We have the ability and the choice. I love that perspective. Like, I love that. So can you do me a favor? Can you kind of give everybody, cause like I scoured Better on a ton this morning. And I think like you've done an incredible job, but you know, for people listening to this, whether it's like, I want to be my authentic self. I want to be able to communicate to my team better. I want to be able to connect with my clients at a deeper level. I want somebody to be able to watch a video and feel my heart. I feel like I keep getting stuck behind strategies and tactics, or I can only communicate features and benefits. And I personally think the solution to 99.9% of that is authenticity. And I think you've done an incredible job. So can you give everybody the overview of like Better On and where people can connect with you and find
Absolutely.
you and lean in?
So betteron.com, Better On LinkedIn, Ryan Carey, me on LinkedIn, Better On Video on Instagram. What it's about is, you know, what we're doing is not about video. It's about the camera. Everybody has a camera. And the hypothesis is that while 99% of the world uses their camera to make stuff for fill in the blank, whatever platform you want to put it on, or connect like this to, you know, on a two-way street for business or for personal, we're using the camera to record ourselves, for you to record yourself in a safe, private, encouraging, supportive environment, and then use the video to see what your audience sees and then decide what are you going to do. And it's it's a lot of, I don't know, for some people it's fun. For some people it doesn't start fun, but it gets them somewhere better. We only work with the willing. You're never going to be forced into this. It really is about being curious, knowing that going through, growth is not easy, but growth pays off exponentially. So we have different programs that range from a couple weeks to a couple months. We have a self-guided program that you can try out for free if you want. You can go to the website and check it out. The majority of our work is actually with companies who invest in their teams, their people, groups of 10, 50, 100 people to go through our program, and each individual participant works with one of our guides, which is like a trainer. So you actually have someone who's already worked with hundreds of people just like you to really help you go through that process of seeing yourself and get you over the hump to realize that on the other side of that, like, ooh, yuck, gross, there I am, is so much empowerment and a place that most people don't get to.
Yeah, I love it. And I love the way that you broke it down. And we only work with the willing, right? Like, this is an invitation, right? I think for everybody listening, I personally was like diving into their resources this morning when I was prepping for the show with Ryan. And I was like, yep, this. And I love the way you get to be a manager of moments, but your ability to manage the moments boils down to how strong your emotional fitness is. And the strength of that fitness and the strength of that authenticity just really boils down to this willingness to examine it, to be really authentic about it, to current state it and say, I would like this to be stronger. I could see the benefit in this. I could see how I could utilize this. And if that's the case, then jump in and work it out. Jump in and flex it, right? Like, you can't get upset about the abs that you don't have from the sit-ups that you don't do, right? And just like I joke with people, like, the fork didn't make me fat when I was fat. Like, nobody forced the chocolate cake into my mouth. At some point, I picked it up, and I could also choose to put it down.
I meant to mention this. You dropped 100 pounds. Congratulations. That's
100 pounds.
Huge,
Thanks.
Man. That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. By the way, that was the fourth time, but this time it's off forever. So yeah, at 41, I have a 6-pack. I'm like handled, and it was easy because it was based on authenticity. By the way, around the same time as when I could listen to myself on video and I was no longer living a lie. And the correlation is the moment I started expressing my authentic self, like my core truth without fear of judgment in my childhood and my life, I lost 35 pounds in a month without changing anything. Because I had been hiding and all that emotional strain on my, sympathetic nervous system, and I elevated cortisol and all of it. So like, there's also massive health benefits. And like, truthfully, you can have the summer body of your dreams if you're willing to live like authentically, but that's a whole different podcast. So it all, to your point, and even what you shared, it all boiled down to authenticity, right? Like, it was all around the same time. And that's where things started to really shift. Like, my joy and excitement for life come back. I had a vision for the first time in my life. I was like, oh, I can see clearly. I know who I want to be as a father and as a partner, and having another family, and like how I want to give back in business, and like where I want to be. And I was like, wow, there's like some really big baked in benefits on the other side of like, looking in the mirror. Maybe I should do this more often. Turns out the more you do it, the more in love you fall with the reflection, and then the easier everything gets.
And again, to everyone at home, what George is talking about doesn't just happen. Like, there's a lot of work.
Yeah. And like, as we wrap, here's the funniest part. Like, I'm the king of writing love notes to myself. They're everywhere. They're on my mirror. They're on the background of my phone. Like, the background of my phone for 3 years was a photo of me at 5 years old, because I couldn't be mean to him when I looked. So I would like use it as this way to be honest. And then I'm like, oh, you're compassionate, you're giving, you care, you blank, like, you're attractive, like, you're loving, you give back, and it was just like, for all the noise that the world put in, I had to equilaterally replace it with so much more. And then I became addicted to it. And I think I appreciate you calling that out. But The muscle's only as strong as your ability to flex it and use it. And here's the funniest part. It's the one muscle I found that cannot be overtrained.
Ooh, yes. Yeah, totally. You know, I'm sitting here, you're like, I'm addicted to it. I was like, well, isn't there a limit to addiction? Well, this one, it's like, right? Okay. That makes you feel, that makes you feel good.
Yeah. I can't wait for you to tell me like you got rhabdo from overtraining your authenticity and self-love. Like, no, it's net positive on all parties. The more you overtrain it, the more people around you benefit from it without even being in the gym.
I'm going to create an activity for our next group that goes through Better On, where it's like, go be too much authentic, go be overly authentic on camera. Let's see how it looks.
Yeah, I think it's that one. I was like, maybe it's not about getting rid of addictions. Maybe it's about coming up with the healthiest ones and celebrating them all. So yeah, I love it. We're gonna have to jam more, but we gotta land this plane. We'll have to do this again. This was a blast, man. So like genuinely from the bottom of my heart, like this conversation was incredible. Like, thank you for coming on the show and being authentic and sharing and being open.
And thank you for having me. And thank you to anybody who gave us their time to listen to this or watch this.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause who knows if this one made sense.
Yeah,
it made sense to us. Like Ryan and I we were drinking from the same Kool-Aid, but like, you're going to have to let us know if this resonated with you, because like, we would love to hear, because I enjoyed the conversation. So I think for everybody listening, here's what I'll end with. I don't believe in coincidences. They're just us getting out of God's way. But if any part of this message resonated today, if it tickled today, if it hit you at a point and you had a thought of like, oh, I should say that thing, or I should boom, or I feel like this, like use it as your permission slip to try, right? Like the only way you know what's on the other side, or if you like that meal you've never eaten or that recipe you've never tried, is if you take a bite of it. And so don't complicate the bite. Don't make it hard. Don't move it till tomorrow. Like let today be the day that you take the bite. And it could be recording a video. It could be looking in the mirror. It could be going live and being authentic. It could be committing to something. It could be having a conversation. It could be being authentic with yourself for the first time and answering some questions with a pen and a piece of paper. It could be checking out Better On and going to their website and signing up for the self-guided and seeing what you find. It could be using ChatGPT as the best therapist and be like, I need you to rip apart everywhere I'm not authentic and be mean about it, right? Like, I have no problem with a robot yelling at me. I don't take it personally anymore, and it works pretty good. But I think it's your permission slip to lean in. Because like at the end of the day, it's really your journey and that muscle is yours. And if you want to flex it and try it and see where you win and see where you benefit. And if I can support you, if Ryan can support you, reach out, get a hold of us in any which way capacity. I'll probably send you to him anyways, but you can get a hold of me, how to DM me. But let today be the day. Like make a commitment, make yourself worth it, and let today be the day that you start on it. So that's what we got for you guys today. So this is going to be another episode of the Mind of George Show. So we will either see you in the next episode or you will hear me in your earballs. But either way, we're out.